Welcome to the internet, your gateway to adventure.
Yesterday after court, I immediately came home and wrote down everything that had happened since my previous post. I think it's best if I keep everyone up to date, just in case something happens. At least people will know what's going on and give me the best advice possible. I also want to say, I appreciate the help offered by those of you who have in fact offered. Sadly, I had to put the disclaimer at the top of the post because I was getting a rash of inbox messages from people claiming I'm going to jail soon. Anyways, back to what you people really care about. As I said, I came home, I posted yesterday's update, and not long after that, I got a call from Lysandra. The affected jurors all exchanged numbers. She said that on a ride home, she was followed by something. It wasn't another car or person, but rather, she said something was always out of her peripheral vision. Like, she would see it out of the corner of her eye, and then when she looked, it was gone. She said she got back to her house when she had her husband close the door to the attic, and sat down in her living room. When the thing returned at the sides of her vision, she didn't look at it, but rather kept looking straight ahead. She said it inched its way closer to her over the course of nearly 2 whole minutes. It got nearly a foot away from her face, and looked up. I'll give you her words verbatim, because they're going to stick with me for the rest of my, hopefully, long and peaceful life. It was the face of pure evil. It was rage, hate, and malice incarnate. According to Lysandra, it had holes where its eyes should be, and rotting skin that was falling off its face as if it had been flayed with a cheese grater. It had teeth that seemed to go on for rows down the back of its throat. Not sharpened, but broken, like if you snapped a stick, and it wound up with multiple points. During the time it was getting closer to her, dread consumed her. When she couldn't take it anymore, she looked towards it, and it was gone. I decided to take the advice of several Redditors and resolved to stay at a hotel for the night. I packed up a small bag and stepped out my front door. As I was locking it, I heard something slide around inside. I walked over to my window, peeked over my head and around to see in. There was black dust everywhere. It hadn't been there when I was in the house seconds prior, but it was all over my living room, television. The part of the dining room table that I could see was covered in it, and the floor in the hallway had it all over the floors and walls, even the ceiling. I got in my car and got the hell out of there. At the hotel, I was actually okay. Nothing directly happened to me, but I did have the most vivid, terrifying nightmare I've ever had. In the nightmare, I'm at my house and I go to the attic. I feel that I don't want to go, but something is compelling me to do it anyways. I walk below the door and look up. I can hear breathing from above. I reach up and let down the stairs. The black dust falls off as it lowers. I look up into the darkness of my attic, and I see 2 spots that are darker than the rest. If that makes any sense. I stare deeply into those 2 small, endless pits of black, and begin to ascend the stairs. Suddenly, something grabs me from behind, and I'm swung like a horizontal pendulum from the stairs to the hallway wall, which had all of its slats broken. I'm impaled, but I live. Then, something I can't see takes me off the wall and begins breaking all of my bones individually, eventually stuffing me inside a small suitcase. Then I hear the words "go up," and I jolted awake. Now, we all know what the dream was. It's a recreation of the murder I'm on jury for. I'm also pretty sure I can discern what "go up" means. Probably means go to the attic. Like a dumbass. No thanks. I got up to go to court this morning and On my way out, I was walking down the hall and noticed a small pile of this black dust in front of a utility closet. I didn't stop to find out why it was there. Trinette and Lysandra went to the judge this morning and told him what's been happening to us. They said that the judge brushed it off, saying the connection of the black dust was thin at best, but that we could talk more after the day was over. Let me get to the court stuff. They had the lead detective testify, as well as the officers that first arrived on the scene and the medical examiner, then finally John Willis himself. Detective Alan Potts. Detective Potts was assigned the murder and testified that he couldn't see what other explanation there was for the murders besides John Willis. Coupling the fact that his wife was cheating on him and his sister delivered potentially upsetting news, there was motive and opportunity. He said it seemed like a crime of passion. Aside from the broken slats in the hallway, they had no way of proving when that was done. There were two things that didn't make sense to him, though. One was the black powder that was present at the scene. The other was the fact that John is a small, meek man. He doesn't look as if he would be capable of breaking all his wife's bones so precisely so as to fold her and put her in a suitcase. Nor did he outward have the medical know-how. That being said, though, looks can be deceiving, and we can't know beyond a doubt that he didn't, in fact, possess that knowledge. Along those same lines, it doesn't seem as if he'd be able to lift his sister up 2 feet and impale her. He said that despite these inconsistencies, he firmly believes that John Willis is guilty of the murder. Officer Joanna Presley. Officer Presley and her partner, Nathan Dan Wright, were the officers who responded to John Willis's 911 call. She reported that they arrived to the scene and saw John sitting on his front porch with blood on him. Not absolutely covered in blood, but a substantial amount. He seemed extremely distressed, and his demeanor did not match that of someone who just carried out a double murder. He refused to go back inside, and kept telling them not to go near the attic over and over. He said it's watching him, and it got what it wanted. Multiple times as well. In his initial statement, he claimed that it came down from the attic, just like I knew it was going to. It broke my wall, all at one time, and slammed my sister on it. Then it took its cape and swarmed my wife, and when it got up, she was a pile of a human being, and there was a suitcase out already. So it slid over, put her inside, and closed it. He recanted his statement about his wife later on, stating that he didn't see what happened to her, which is why he didn't report that she was in the suitcase, leaving the police to find her themselves. Sketchy, I know. Chief Medical Examiner Glenn Loaf. Glenn Loaf did the autopsies on the bodies. Despite their appearances, the victims did not die how you'd think they did. They were both suffocated. This means that Erica was alive for a time while stuck on the wall, and Jessica was alive entirely during the process of having all of her bones broken. The black powder recovered at the scene was also in both victims' lungs, and the rest of their primary organs showed signs of burning, something he'd never seen outside of a death caused by fire. The black dust was tested, and no match could be made. It has no earthly qualities. It is absolutely not anything the scientists assigned to the case had ever seen before in their long careers. So I'm no closer on that. And finally, the only person who really knows what happened, John Willis himself. Testimony of defendant John Willis. John started his testimony by telling us he was not crazy. He insisted that what he was about to say was the God's honest truth. For about 2 months before the murders, he was experiencing weird things in his home. It would be unnecessarily cold in his house at strange times. Things would move around his house. He kept finding black dust everywhere, and he became convinced someone was living in his attic. He tried getting help from a paranormal investigator, but couldn't get one out to him in time to look into it. He said a creature came to him in his dreams and told him he wanted him. That was all he wanted. Because he was special. He couldn't just take him. He could offer himself, or it would take someone he loved. He said he never offered himself, and that's why it took his wife. He figured it took his sister, as it was opportunistic. She was never a target. He said his wife was planning on leaving that night, as they had a big fight about her ongoing relationship with another man, and had taken a suitcase out of the attic and almost tripped on her way down, letting out a yelp. He claimed as he was sitting in the living room at the time, taking his sister about her issue with Jessica. When Erica got up to go see what had happened, John followed, and that's when it happened. The thing came down from the attic as it lowered the drywall, tore off the slats, and they were folded down while breaking at the top. It turned around and basically stretched out an arm and swung, lifting Erica off the ground and onto the spikes. Then it turned to Jessica, enveloped her in its cape. It stood there for about 10 seconds, then let her go. She was just a pile of skin and broken bones. It then slid the suitcase over, opened it, placed Jessica neatly inside, zipped it almost all the way shut. It then retreated back into the attic. He said he loved his wife no matter what, and hadn't been told the news from his sister yet, so he had absolutely no reason to harm either one of them. The court was adjourned until tomorrow, where we will hear closing arguments and start our deliberation. The affected jurors got together and went to the judge, then went to the court cafe and talked. The judge said he was going to think about all the information we presented to him and speak to us in the morning. So now we have to get to court early. As I said, we then went to the court cafe and had a conversation. It turns out we all had the exact same dream. All 6 of us dreamed the exact same thing. We all wondered why we were having these things happen to us, and the rest aren't. And it turns out I got off pretty easy last night. Trinette said her sons opened the attic hatch in their apartment because they heard an animal up there. And when they did, a bright light filled the hallway. And it got down to about 40 degrees in their house until she closed it. Mike had entered his house and seen something crawling through the living room, leaving the trail of dust behind it. Mike said he gave chase to it, but after it turned a corner, he couldn't find it. Later in the evening, he vomited a black sludge. One of the jurors I haven't named yet, Marcus Hightower, said he pulled into his driveway and saw a face in his upstairs bedroom window, and that it was the most evil thing he'd ever laid eyes on. He felt its hate for him and everything else in the world. All 3 of the jurors and their families spent the night in hotels last night. Tonight is the last night before the end of the trial. I have no reason to believe that whatever this thing is will not step its game up tonight. And I have a theory about what's going on. I'll reveal my theory tomorrow, mostly because I don't want to sound stupid. Thank you all for your help and for taking the time to read about my plight. I truly appreciate you all.